Thanks for joining us today. We are still waiting for a couple more people, and then we will get started at approximately 2 minutes past the hour. Welcome to the webinar, everyone. This webinar is how to add more activity into the school day, and it's brought to you by Action for Healthy Kids. My name is Carol Muller. I am one of the regional field managers for Colorado, and today we have 3 presenters. We have Hannah Laughlin. She is our Action for Healthy Kids regional field manager for the Midwest and Northwest, and we have Dr. Christina Van Zant. She is our Alabama Action for Healthy Kids State Coordinator. And then we have a special guest who will be joining us later. That is Octavia Rowe. She is a teacher at Feidler Elementary in Chicago Public Schools, and she's going to share some information about how her school is working to incorporate physical activity into their school day. But first of all, let's review some logistics before we get started. Once you link in, you will see a control panel. Usually it's on the right side of your screen, and you can use your telephone or your speakers to listen to the presentation, but everybody will be muted to avoid static and background interference. So there is a dialog box at the bottom of your control panel, and you can type questions into the box as we're going along, and we'll try to get them answered either later during the presentation or via email following the webinar. Note that we are recording this webinar, and we will send out links to the recording and all the handouts that go with it approximately 2 to 3 business days afterwards. So I'm going to turn it over to Hannah now, and she's going to get us started.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you all for joining us today, and I'd like to start by giving you a little bit of background about Action for Healthy Kids. Action for Healthy Kids is a national nonprofit fighting childhood obesity, undernourishment, and physical inactivity by helping schools become healthier places. We are a network of moms, dads, teachers, students, schools, and community leaders, as well as school wellness experts who have banded together to create healthier learning environments for our children. We believe that everyone has a part to play in ending the national childhood obesity epidemic, and our programs, tools, and resources are available to make that possible. Our goal is to create school communities where children learn how to make healthy choices from the minute they walk in the front door to the minute they leave at the end of the school day. Action for Healthy Kids was founded in 2002 by former Surgeon General David Satcher. Today we have more than 60,000 members, and we also partner with dozens of professional associations, government agencies, and corporations at the national and local level to address the childhood obesity epidemic. This presentation is part of our Action for Healthy Kids Parent Leadership Series. Action for Healthy Kids believes that parents play a crucial role in creating healthy school communities. We've found that school communities, which include strong parent advocates, are generally more effective at creating changes which are sustainable and permanent. We've developed this series of webinars and tools to provide parents and school wellness advocates with the knowledge that you'll need to make your efforts a success. On your screen, you'll see the topics that are covered in our Parent Leadership webinar series. They've been divided into 6 separate webinars, which we will present live throughout the year, and they're always available to you in an archived format if you missed one. Today's presentation is focused on incorporating physical activity into the school day, and we're glad you're joining us to learn more. At Action for Healthy Kids, we help our members and supporters learn about the issues take action in their schools, and work to transform their school culture. Our goals for today's webinar include, we hope that you will learn. You can walk away understanding the importance of physical activity in schools and its connection to learning. We'll give you background information on physical activity in schools and recommendations from the experts. We hope that you'll walk away being able to act. You'll gather some ideas and strategies on how to take action. Parents can make great volunteers in this area and can cover action at multiple levels. Today we'll cover how to get involved and launch an initiative at your school. And finally, we hope you walk away being able to transform. You will hear about some strategies that make your program that you can use to make your program more sustainable. As we mentioned earlier, program sustainability is critical for transforming your school's culture over the long term. Now I'm going to turn it over to Christina, who is going to start us off by talking about some of the recommendations for physical activity in schools.
Thanks, Hannah. The National Association for Sports and Physical Education, or NASPE, recommends 60 minutes of daily moderate to vigorous physical activity for school-aged children. Experts recommend that half of this, about 30 minutes a day, be provided by schools. All right, research shows that physical activity has a positive impact on academic achievement. It leads to more focused classroom behaviors like concentration and memory, and it is related to improved mathematics, reading, and writing test scores. Action for Healthy Kids calls this the learning connection. Physical activity is fuel for the brain, not just fuel for the body. So let's take a look at what movement does for the brain. It increases learning ability, it increases attentiveness, increases the level of engagement, and decreases behavioral issues, and decreases absenteeism. So throughout this presentation, we will use two terms often, physical activity and physical education, or PE. It's important to understand that these terms are not interchangeable. So as Paul Zentarski has stated, I tell people it's not my job as a PE teacher to make kids fit. My job is to make them know all the things they need to know to keep themselves fit. Physical education is a class where students learn the benefits, the skills, the training, the principles of physical activity. So for example, during a basketball unit in PE, students spend time learning the rules of the game and practicing skills specific to the sport, such as shooting or passing. If you're interested in learning about what makes up a quality PE program or advocating for daily PE in your school or district, NASPE has some great resources. A recent study published in the American Journal of Preventive Medicine found that instituting daily PE classes would boost children's moderate to vigorous physical activity by 23 minutes a day, more than 1/3 of the 60 minutes recommended by federal guidelines. So as I said, today we're not going to focus on PE. We're going to focus on physical activity. Physical activity is anything that gets your body moving, walking, biking, sport, dance, even house cleaning. In addition to PE classes, schools can provide physical activity time at recess with fitness breaks throughout the school day, classroom learning that incorporates physical activity, before and after school programming, field trips that include physical activity, and by establishing walk and bike to school programs. But if you want to get involved, so where do you start? Start by researching state and local laws and policies related to physical activity and request information about how your school or district is implementing them. Some states have requirements for the amount of PE in schools, and others have requirements for physical activity. If laws don't exist or aren't strong enough, contact your legislators and let them know that you care about physical activity in schools and that they should too. Note that even if these laws do exist in your state, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are being enforced. To learn about your state's requirements for PE and your physical activity profile, you can check out the Shape of the Nation report, the status of physical education in the USA, conducted by NASPE and the American Heart Association. And now I'm going to turn it back to Hannah to talk to you about how you can get involved.
Thanks, Christina. So there are a number of ways, in addition to those that we just heard Christina talk about researching your state policies, that you can get involved to be engaged in your school or your community around physical activity in schools. You can attend school board, accountability committee, or school wellness meetings to express your support and to advocate for physical activity. Another option would be to become familiar with your school or your district wellness policy. Find who's in charge of it in your district and ask questions like, what does it say about physical activity and or physical education? Ask a question like, are recommendations from national experts included? Are school practices aligned with the policies? Are physical activity efforts being assessed and tracked? And if physical activity is not currently part of the policy, what could you do, or what is the process that you could take to add it? Another good idea is to look into physical activity goals in the school improvement plans. Each individual school building has a school improvement plan where progress is tracked on goals across the school year, where teachers and principals are held very accountable for them. So look into adding physical activity goals into these school improvement plans so that the progress can be more likely to be tracked and reviewed regularly. Here's an example of an item that should be addressed in a wellness policy related to physical activity. Physical activity should not be given out to students as a consequence for bad behavior, like push-ups or running laps. And it also should not be withheld as a consequence. So students should not have to miss recess or gym to make up homework or tests. The American Alliance for Health, Physical Education, Recreation, and Dance, or AFERD, has many great resources for beefing up physical activity through its Let's Move in Schools initiative. AFERD would like to see every school in the United States provide a comprehensive physical activity program, which is described on their website, and the link to that is here. They have a toolkit designed for parent-teacher associations or parent-teacher organizations to assess the level of physical education and activity currently provided in your school, and some action items for ideas on next steps you can take once you understand what's currently being offered. Once you understand the laws, policies, and guidelines that address physical activity, you may decide to launch an initiative. We can't emphasize enough how important it is to start with the support of your principal first and foremost, and then school leaders, teachers, students, and your parent community. Having that administrative buy-in from your principal is a great place to start. But if you're working with older students, it's also really important to consider some of their likes and dislikes as you plan your physical activity initiative. As students get older, the length of their classes tend to increase, while their opportunities for physical activity during the school day tend to decrease. Recess may not be offered, physical activity during free periods may or may not be encouraged, and fewer students are enrolled in PE. And this is really just a fact that they may not be required to take PE for graduation. So it's really important to find ways to engage middle and high school students in physical activity throughout the school day. It can be a challenge, but it also can be very rewarding. You have to make sure that you're making physical activity relevant, important, and valuable for teenagers. And a good way to do this is to require their involvement and their leadership as you launch physical activity initiatives. The suggestions on this slide are good for kids of all ages, but are particularly important to keep in mind with secondary students. There are strategies to engage them. So the first one is think about engaging students to create, plan, and lead their own initiatives. It's really key for the buy-in, participation, and program success in older students. Use humor to engage their interest and their participation. Make the activities fun and interesting and challenging. And lastly, show students the benefits. Tell them how movement throughout the day will help them think better and feel more alert, and show them where physical activity and fitness will take them. Apply it to their life and their world in a real way so that they can understand creating habits now will benefit them in the long term. It's also important to consider making your initiatives all-inclusive. All children are entitled to quality physical education and physical activity opportunities. Special consideration should be given to those with particular physical activity needs or who are at risk for a sedentary lifestyle. For example, children with chronic illness, physical or other disabilities, including children who are overweight. Be sure to make your recess, fitness breaks, before and after school clubs, and other programs inclusive so that children with special needs and typically developing children can participate side by side. Assess the ability needs of all your students. Some may require adaptations, while others may require substantial assistance from peer helpers or adults. All activities can be modified or adapted to ensure that all students can join in the experience and reap the benefits. As you work to make all of your programs inclusive of all students, we are providing these links in the webinar handouts, which are some good resources on inclusivity. But we also wanted to let you know that Action for Healthy Kids has recently updated our Game On, the Ultimate Wellness Challenge, to include tips on inclusivity and including all children. So be sure to check that out as you plan your physical activity initiative. Now I'm going to turn it over to Christina to talk a little bit more about recess.
Thanks, Hannah. Okay, so let's move on to specific initiatives, and let's start with recess. Class size, standardized testing, the 3 R's. When most people talk about how to improve education, they tend to focus only on what happens in the classroom. But the most unexpected opportunity to boost learning lies outside the classroom, on the playground, at recess. NASB recommends that schools provide 20 minutes of recess per day, yet up to 40% of U.S. school districts have reduced or eliminated recess in order to free up more time for core academics. And 1 in 4 elementary schools no longer provides recess to all grades. Research has shown that recess helps students to focus and learn better, so we know that scaling it back comes at a cost to learning. So what can parents do? You can start by advocating for more recess. If your school does not offer recess, does not meet the recommended 20 minutes a day, or allows recess to be withheld as a form of discipline, parents can start a campaign to bring it back. So you can advocate for better recess, push for basic elements of an effective recess program, enough trained adults on hand to enforce safety rules and prevent aggressive bullying behavior. Look at the information in the box. Kids who are overweight often have to deal with bullies. Make sure there's enough space, facilities, and equipment, and also an environment that's physically safe. So maybe it's time to refurbish your playground to help with safety issues and to promote increased activity. You can also lead a campaign for active recess. This is also called structured recess. It is planned and actively supervised recess periods where students engage in organized play or games that emphasize turn-taking, helpfulness, rule following, and emotional control. Each game or activity has preset rules by which the entire school population abides. Sometimes older students are trained to help lead activities for younger students. The benefits of active recess include reduced bullying, better behavior, and easier transitions from recess to learning. The goal is to get all students moving and engaged. Playground improvements can help to promote structured activities. The photo at the bottom of this slide shows volunteers fixing up an indoor fitness or activity room at a school in Chicago. So providing active indoor games and activities for inclement weather days is also a great way to boost physical activity. Staffing can be one of the biggest barriers to implementing structured recess. Parents can volunteer to lead activities and supervise at recess. Schools can always use help in this area, so make sure parent volunteers receive training either from school staff or other experts in the field. You can also advocate for a recess before lunch, also called recess reversal. Kids tend to eat a better lunch if they've already had their time on the playground, leading to less waste and better behavior and performance. Although some schools resist implementing this due to logistical challenges associated with changing their schedules, many are doing it very successfully and reaping lots of benefits. We have a recess success story from an elementary school, a middle school, and a high school. With funding from Ohio Action for Healthy Kids and Fuel Up to Play 60, the Wellness Committee at Millersburg Elementary School, led by parent Heidi Barbie, implemented the Nights on the Move program to promote more activity during recess. During recess, students walk or run laps around the playground area to earn a punch on their Nights on the Move card. They earn various tokens when they reach certain milestones. Each Monday morning, the biggest mover of the week is announced to the whole school. And at the end of the year, the biggest mover from each grade earns a gift card for a new pair of shoes. In just the first 4 weeks of the program, students traveled a combined total of over 2,000 miles. And how about recess for secondary students? Middle school students at Apex Middle School in North Carolina have a 12-minute mini recess after lunch called Blacktop Time. With these particular middle schoolers, it's important not to call it recess, as that is associated with being in elementary school, and middle schoolers may consider themselves beyond that. The PTA painted the blacktop to mark out various activities to inspire more movement, and adults are around to encourage participation. Panther Creek High School in North Carolina offers Smart Lunch, an extended single lunch period. Students spend half their time eating lunch and half their time participating in a variety of activities, including rotating sports activities that are set up in the gym. You could also include things like Dance Dance Revolution, We Fit, yoga, Pilates, Tai Bo, or any other exercise videos. These three organizations have so many great resources for recess initiatives. Kaboom is a national nonprofit that provides trainings on how to revamp your playground, how to raise funds to get it done, playground improvement guides, step-by-step planners, and grant opportunities. Peaceful Playground has playground blueprints, stencil sets, playground program activity guides, and provides fundraising support. And we partner with Playworks both at the national and local level. Playworks has comprehensive programs that they run for schools with higher rates of free and reduced lunch. They also offer trainings and online playbook with hundreds of games that you can download free of charge. And now I'm going to, thanks, Hannah.
I am now going to introduce our other guest speaker today, who is Octavia Rowe. She is a classroom teacher at Jacob Beidler Elementary in Chicago Public Schools. And we know, if you follow the news at all, that the Chicago Public Schools face a number of difficulties, but they're really doing a great job in increasing physical activity during their school day. So Octavia, would you like to tell us about your 30-20-10 program?
Yes, I would. Thank you very much for having me. So my part will cover what the 30-20-10 program looks like at a school. And I am at Jacob Beidler Elementary School, and I am a classroom teacher. We can move on to the next slide. So the 30-20-10 program, you're probably wondering, like, what is it? So it is a program that is an aspect of the Minds in Motion program, and this was started in Chicago Public Schools in our district. And it was just designed to kind of strengthen the quality and quantity of the physical education that students receive in CPS. And the 30-20-10 program, it consists of these three components. Students receive 30 minutes of physical education, and they receive 20 minutes of recess, and then 10 minutes of physical activity in the classroom every single day. And this has worked really well at our school. We can move on to the next slide. So we found that there are some benefits to the 30-20-10 program. And research has shown that the physical activity and brain function, that there's a direct link to the two, which is why CPS plans to have these programs in all of the Chicago public schools, And what's really interesting about it is that in order for you to be able to move around physically, you have to exercise in order to do that for a long time. And so when you work out your brain at the same time, it always ends with like a benefit. I believe that at our school, our experience has equal to success, because I have seen my students like before they do the exercises and then after they do the exercises. And I can elaborate on this a little more on the next slide. So at our school, it is specifically tailored to our school. So it's going to look different at any other school because of maybe, the facility that you have and how much time you have in each subject. So what we do is the students receive gym each day. Now this is something that all of the students enjoy from grade K all the way up to 8th grade, because they just enjoy having the time to exercise and to be outside of the classroom setting, if you may. And we also have a fruit and vegetable program at our school, which I think is so cool, because a lot of times our students are unable to get the fruits and vegetables that they receive, or they get it from lunch, but sometimes it's not like the daily serving that you should have. And so our school has this fruit and vegetable program where at least 2 to 3 times in a month we actually have a featured fruit or vegetable, and everybody in the school gets a serving of that vegetable. And something really cool that I learned, and as well as my students, is we learned about the pluots, which was a intertwining of a apricot and a plum. And it was a very nice looking fruit, and the students really enjoyed it. They were very happy to eat that while I was reading them a story. We can move to the next slide. And so this is a picture of my students in my classroom. This is what they look like after we do the exercise. And what we do is 2 or more physical activities, which is like fitness and brain breaks. So before we do it, they get really, really excited. And some of the things that we do in class, I just ask them to come to the rug doing something like from their feet, like walking like a duck, and they do that, and then they sit down on the rug and they watch the other tables as they would come to the table, like doing jumping, or come to the rug doing jumping jacks. They kind of skip, they do speed walk, or whatever we can kind of come up with for that day. But it is definitely a routine that we do when we come from our reading lessons going into the math. I've noticed, like just from day one, that the students get a huge burst of energy after we do the exercise. Like they're even talking louder, they're very focused on the lesson. I have more of them participate. It's just like the blood is really circulating through their body, going up to their brain, and it makes them ask more questions, and it makes them more engaged in the lesson that we're talking about at hand. I'm ready for the next slide. Okay, and so that will end my part on what it looks like, the 30-20-10 program looks like at our school. I think it's an amazing program. It really gets the kids involved, and I think that this is CPS going in a great direction to help students who are dealing with weight problems or not getting enough fruit and vegetables that they need in their diet every day.
Absolutely. Thank you, Octavia, for being able to join us today. I know Octavia is going to hang around for just a couple more minutes and answer some questions for us. So if you do have questions, please enter them into the question box now, and I think Carol is going to post them to some of the panelists.
Yes, and thank you, Octavia. That was that program sounds wonderful. I do have a couple of questions that have come in for you. One, let's see, how long is the school day in Chicago Public Schools, and have they had to extend their school day to accommodate for the extra PE?
Well, no. So the school day starts at our school from 8:45 to 3:45, and we haven't had to extend the day in any kind of way. We just kind of find times to kind of squeeze it in. So if we're walking down the hallway, we may do like some speed walking, or if we are transitioning from like subjects, then we kind of just take a break. We stand up, we do inhales and exhales, and we kind of just squeeze it into the schedule that we have already.
And we'll follow up on that just by saying that, too, Illinois is one of the only states that does have a daily PE requirement. And we do have a waiver system, but Chicago is actually not renewing their waiver moving forward. So it is exciting that they're making a commitment to daily PE across the district here.
Yes.
Okay, and that probably helps to answer one of the next questions, which is, what kind of challenges have you had in implementing 30-20-10, and probably specific to, have you gotten any pushback from administrators or teachers, and if so, how have you dealt with it?
At some point, some of the teachers felt like, on top of all of the very the busy things that we do already in the school day, that it could be quite a bit overwhelming. But then after the teachers go ahead and implement it into their daily schedule, they see that it actually does get the kids more engaged, especially after like that lunch period, when the kids can either be a little drowsy or they can just be like overexcited from like things that they have at lunch that kind of gets them moving. And if they are doing one of the two things, like it benefits them to kind of have to get up and move around, or it kind of wakes them up if you may. And with the administration, I mean, we probably have had like minor issues, just like with scheduling, just making sure that we are on the same track and making sure that all of the students K through 8 can get gym. But otherwise, I mean, it's worked pretty smoothly.
So do the teachers get training on how to implement in their classroom?
So we had a training more so with like the fruit and vegetable program, but with the training on how to do this, it wasn't as much as a training. It was just more of like, this is what this teacher is doing in her classroom and it's working perfectly. And some other teachers kind of just gave their insight, and that's how we did it during one of our weekly meetings that we have at our school.
That's great. Thanks, Octavia. We really appreciate all the information and your expertise. There are some other general questions related to recess. And the first one I'll just answer, which is related to the handouts and things we're going to send out after the webinar. You will get comprehensive handouts that contain all the content that we are going over today, and in particular all the resource links. So if you missed it going through it, you don't have to worry about that. Within 2 to 3 days afterwards, there will be a list of webinar resources that come along with the content handouts and any tip sheets that go with the presentation as well. So related to recess, here's one that Hannah, maybe you or Christina could take. Recess is often a time when bullying takes place. Do you have any suggestions on how to reduce bullying?
Definitely. Well, I'll start, and then if Christina wants to add something in, that would be fantastic as well. So as Christina mentioned while she was talking, recess is often a time where bullying takes place because it's generally more free than the rest of the school day, which is kind of the idea of recess. But some good tips, as Christina covered, is really making sure there's enough adults on hand. In the budget cut culture that we're in for schools, a lot of time recess supervisors, their time is cut, or teachers are required to go out to the playground for recess, which oftentimes eats away at their lunch break. But just making sure that adults are trained on safety rules and ways to kind of identify and prevent bullying behavior is a really good option. Another idea is also to ensure that you have very active recess. Octavia didn't mention, but Chicago Public Schools have only been required to have recess. This is the second year. They had 30 years where recess was not required. And one of the things that they were seeing is that because kids hadn't had recess, they really didn't know how to be active on recess and utilize that time for good free play. So really making sure that you have some planned and actively supervised recess activities that can either be led by parent volunteers or teachers or recess supervisors or even older children is a good way to kind of ensure that recess is structured and not just a time where students are kind of left on their own. And oftentimes that's kind of when bullying enters the equation. Christina, do you have anything you'd like to add to that from your teacher experience?
No, I totally agree with everything you said. From a teacher point of view, I used to be an elementary school teacher. A lot of that also kind of can come from the culture that the teacher creates in his or her own classroom. So really kind of fostering that community culture within your classroom could also help a little bit with that.
Okay, another question. So you talked about policy items, not taking recess away as a form of discipline. Do you have any other ideas or a place we could go to find ideas on how to replace that form of discipline with healthier options?
Yeah, so taking recess away for behavior issues is really kind of goes against what the research says. Kids who often have behavior problems need that recess and that free time and that physical activity to re-engage their brains to minimize behavior problems and later in the day. And so one of a great technique that I saw a teacher do when I used to work with Indiana teachers was instead of taking recess away, if a student was having a behavior issue, they had a brain break station in the corner of their classroom, and it just was a basket full of little pieces of equipment that were all focused on physical activity. And if they were having a behavioral issue, then they were required to go over to the brain break corner and just spend about 5 minutes on their own. So not punishing them for the behavior that they're doing or withholding recess from them, but trying to help them target that energy that they're having that's causing disruptions or bad behavior and put it into physical activity to try to get them to re-engage in the learning environment. Christina, what about you? Do you have other suggestions?
No, I think that's wonderful. As a teacher, I never really found that taking things away from students in general was extremely helpful. So instead, I used a lot of positive reinforcement. So perhaps good behavior could equal extended recess, or like you mentioned, instead of taking away things from them. So encouraging them to do the right thing instead of punishing always for the wrong.
Okay, one more quick one. Why is it that only 1 in 4 schools offer recess?
Yeah, so Christina mentioned that statistic as she was talking, but like I mentioned, in our tough budget times in the education world with so much emphasis on reading and math and testing, a lot of times as schools try to increase the amount of academic time that they're offering, the first thing to be cut is recess, because it usually takes up about 20 minutes a day, and administrators think, why not use that 20 minutes towards reading or math? So we know from the research that it's actually counterproductive to take away that time for physical activity, because that physical activity is really vital for those test scores ultimately, so that kids can reactivate their brains and really have a positive learning environment across the school day.
All right, thanks you guys very much for answering those questions. The last one just is a very good lead into our next section, and that's, are there any resources you can recommend for ideas for classroom activity breaks? And I think we are going there next. Christina, I think, is going to take over now.
Okay, great. Thanks, Carol. Okay, so as Carol mentioned, let's move on and talk a little bit about fitness breaks. Fitness breaks activate the brain, improve on-task behavior, and leave students more focused and ready to return to their academic activities. They can be as simple as the teacher or a student leading a round of jumping jacks or stretches. There are lots of fun and creative ways to include classroom activity breaks in the daily schedule, and there are lots of resources to help schools. Parents can make a difference by sharing these resources with teachers and administrators and talking to them about the importance of movement in the classroom as part of a comprehensive physical activity program. Start by approaching individual teachers whom you think would be interested. This will help to build momentum and bring hesitant teachers and administrators on board. And also, you can look for grants to bring in trainers and equipment. So let's review some of the resources out there for fitness and brain breaks. UCLA Health Service Professor Tony Yancey created the Instant Recess program for 10-minute exercise breaks. In book and DVD format, Instant Recess is mostly composed of basic movements that the average American can easily perform, but much of its appeal lies in its incorporation of sports and dance techniques. Other routines borrow from cultural dance techniques. One of the most recent videos depicts Native American tribal dancing and integrates it into the 10-minute workout. The point of having these cultural elements is to build enthusiasm for exercising, something Dr. Yancey says is largely absent in America today. In fact, her concern is that fitness has become too medicalized. Brain breaks are quick exercises that can last a minute or more. Some are specifically designed to cross the body's midline, which helps to engage both sides of the brain. Brain Gym, Energizing Brain Breaks, and the Just a Minute school program are all good resources. Breathing, stretching, and short yoga exercises have been shown to have many benefits for kids in school. They calm and clear the mind, they relieve tension and stress, and help increase concentration, focus, and attention span. There are numerous yoga resources. We'll provide some that have a national reach. You probably have numerous local programs available as well. Physical activity can also be linked to specific academic content. Teachers can have students practice spelling or vocabulary words while walking around the room, or they could play a game of charades based on the topic the class is studying. Active Academics, Take 10, and the Healthy Kids Club are great resources. Here are some more ideas. Ask your school staff to incorporate fitness alarms. These are like fire drills. Ring the bell and have the whole school drop everything for a fitness break. Ask teachers to take walk and talk breaks. This is where they take the class for a walk and have them discuss the lesson. Ask the PE teacher or other school staff to lead fitness breaks during morning announcements. And some more tips. Music is a powerful tool. It can be used to get kids moving more in the classroom, in the hallways during transitions, and during lunch. At East Grand School District in Colorado, you might see students dancing to music during transitions or movement breaks, special education classes doing ball exercises with music, or music setting the tone of the day or being used to introduce a lesson theme. Use music and music videos that are appealing to the age group you are targeting. Adults need to model enthusiasm for physical activity by participating in breaks with students, the teachers, the school staff, and parent volunteers. Demonstrate the exercises during staff meetings, just a few at a time. Don't give a whole stack of activities for your teachers to try all at once. They're going to be overwhelmed, and then they will be less likely to use any of them. Start a video exercise library for classroom use. Gather ideas from students, from teachers, other parents, and form your favorite resources. Modify activities so that all students can participate, whatever their fitness level and whatever special needs they may have. And when you're working with middle and high school students, try implementing fitness activities during homeroom or the advisory period. Start slowly, have patience, and be persistent. Teenagers are going to take longer to come around to the idea. And very important, involve students in creating, planning, and leading their own exercises and activity breaks. Here's a great resource from the Colorado Legacy Foundation. Take a Break Teacher Toolbox Physical Activity Breaks in the Secondary Classroom is an array of physical activity breaks for students in 6th through 12th grade. Printable activity cards that contain over 100 activities that are appropriate for middle and high school students and easy to integrate. There's also a lesson plan template for students to create their own activities. Online resources are also included, such as YouTube videos, games, music, interactive programs, challenges, and research to support physical activity breaks and supplemental materials. So here's a brain break success story from South Lakewood Elementary. Parent advocate Shannon Ratliff felt that activity breaks, or brain breaks, should be a more routine part of the day in order to improve retention and memory. With a grant from Colorado Action for Healthy Kids, Shannon provided each teacher with a box of props, laminated brain break training cards, and a smartboard application for the entire school use. Shannon provided a training class for the teachers to get them started, implemented a program to track their progress, and created incentives for them to reach their goals. So here in this picture, teachers are learning Rochambeau. It's a version of rock, paper, scissors. And also just another success story I'd like to share about an Alabama school. In Northport Elementary, kindergarten teacher Jessie Sartain used an Action for Healthy Kids grant to purchase brain break curriculum for Northport Elementary. The entire school has gotten on board, and the principal even included the brain breaks as part of their school improvement plan. And the principal actually goes in when she observes the teachers, and she is checking to see that they are actually using these brain breaks in their classroom. And so this is really a school-wide change, and all of this was just started by one person bringing this to the principal's attention.
What a fantastic example of ways to incorporate fitness breaks and also incorporate it into those school improvement plans and policy as we were talking about earlier. Thank you, Christina.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's move on to talk about before and after school programs. So schools can increase students' daily physical activity levels by incorporating activity into out-of-school time programs, and can do that oftentimes through sports, clubs, and walk or bike to school programs. Parents can have a big impact by researching options and offering to help organize these type of activities. Many schools offer out-of-school time, often referred to as OST programs, to provide safe places for students when their parents are not available, as well as academic support, enrichment activities, and youth development opportunities. They may include both extended learning opportunities for children and school-age childcare, or SACC, programs for working adults. The National After School Association recommends that after-school programs devote at least 20% or 30 minutes of time in their before or after-school program to physical activity, and that these physical activity initiatives or programs should include both strengthening and aerobic activities. If your school has a before or after school program, see if it meets these recommendations, and if not, try to work with the program director to add more movement into the program's time. There are lots of good resources probably in your community that could be of assistance too. YMCAs and Boys and Girls Clubs partner with schools in some areas and are oftentimes great local partners for how to increase physical activity in existing programs. And there are also programs like Catch Kids Club, Spark PE, Playworks, and Focused Fitness, which all have materials and trainings that you can use to strengthen your existing before or after school program. Schools can also offer opportunities for activities through intramurals like sports, clubs, and other initiatives that promote physical activity. Start a walking or running club. You can, for example, make it really simple. Ask a principal or a teacher or another kind of well-known adult in your community to lead students on a morning walk on a regular basis. Or you can check out some already established programs and bring them to your school, like the 3 you see listed here on the screen. The New York Road Runners Club has a running club program for K to 8th grade kids and has programs for all ability levels, including the Mighty Milers. It's a flexible structure and can be tailored to fit your school's needs and resources. Girls on the Run is a program that works to inspire self-respect and healthy lifestyles in preteen girls. The program culminates in a non-competitive 5K run event and there are councils all over the country that facilitate Girls on the Run programming. World Fit is a walking program that pairs your school with a former Olympian or para-Olympian to provide inspiration. So those are all good programs to check out. But running and walking clubs are not your only option. You have others. Why not start an exercise club focused on whatever you enjoy, whether that's volleyball, yoga, karate, jumping rope? I mean, the possibilities are really endless. Or you could find a skilled community member who'd like to volunteer his or her time and lead, for example, maybe simple dance lessons. Or what about a community bicycle club member that might be interested in meeting after school and talking to kids about bicycle safety and hosting a bike rally once a month? You could also ask your school to open the gym after school. Line students up and give them easy, active ways to do fun, easy activities. We're going to talk about this a little bit more in a minute, this open gym model. Or, as we suggested with a running or walking club, bring an established program into your building. It could be through a local community organization or business or your local recreation center or one of the national programs that we mentioned earlier. There are some tips that we would like to share with you about having a successful intramural activity program. Participation in these activities and events should always be voluntary. Every student should have equal opportunity to participate regardless of their ability. So we'll want to make sure it's inclusive to all. It's a great idea to start with surveying students to find out what activities interest them and involve them in the planning. If yoga is your favorite activity and you want to be a skilled volunteer and come in and start a yoga club, but none of the students are interested in it, it might not be the best option for your student. So really finding out what works for your school before doing all the planning legwork is a good way. So make sure you talk to the students. Promote your activities to students and families through flyers, newsletters, and websites. Make sure to get that promotion out there. And then also be sure that you review the district's policies for supervision of activities and facility maintenance, and make sure that your initiatives meet those guidelines. It is important to consider the age and the gender of students you're targeting in your after-school programs. For example, teenage girls are generally less active than boys the same age, and there are some common barriers that teenage girls face in starting or continuing a physical activity routine. They include not having a physical activity role model, so having a physical inactive role model, like their parents, may be an issue. They may not have an adult in their life that models that good physical activity behavior. They may lack the energy due to lacking physical fitness. So because they haven't exercised and understood the connection with increased activity, they just may not understand the benefits that physical activity can bring. They might not have peer role models, so they might not have friends that play sports or exercise regularly, and we all know teenage girls are very influenced by their peers. They may lack the skills, and this could be coupled with a fear of looking silly or clumsy and being teased, so they might not be willing to, or they might have an embarrassment around wearing workout clothes. All of these are common barriers for that teenage girl category. But one recommendation, and we see it done with Girls on the Run, the national organization that we mentioned earlier, is organizing girl-only activities and clubs. And this can really help to overcome some of these barriers and give teenage girls the confidence to participate in physical activity programs in the future. And then, is your school open to the community? Many neighborhoods lack safe playgrounds, open spaces, and equipment for physical activity. Schools have fields, gyms, and playgrounds that offer direct access to outdoor spaces and increased opportunities to play, exercise, and socialize. Work with your school administrators, your school board, and your insurance agents to have your school open during non-school hours for community physical activity initiatives. You can also partner with your local Parks and Recreation Department, your YMCA, or others in your community to offer programming and notify the community about upcoming availability and upcoming programs. These initiatives are often referred to as joint use programs, where 2 or more groups, generally in this case a school and a either city or private organization, share indoor and outdoor spaces to increase physical activity for all. Another great example of a community initiative is a walk and bike to school program. So I'm going to turn it over to Christina to let her tell you a little bit more about that.
All right, great. Thanks, Hannah. So in 1969, 48% of children 5 to 14 years of age usually walked or biked to school. In contrast, by 2009, only 13% of children 5 to 14 years of age usually walked or biked to school. So safety concerns are a major reason kids are not walking to school. Parents can have a big impact in this area as school schedules and policies aren't usually affected. So you can start a walking school bus or bicycle train. A walking school bus is simply a group of students walking to school with 1 or more adult bus drivers. It can be as informal as 2 families taking turns walking their children to school, or a more formal structured route with meeting points, a timetable, and a regularly rotated schedule of trained volunteers. A variation is the bicycle train, in which adults supervise children riding their bikes to school. So here are some walk and bike to school initiatives. Build awareness in your community. Organize your school's participation in National Walk or Bike to School Day. Walk to School Day is held in October, and Bike to School Day is held in May. You can also start a walk or bike to school program. Effective walk and bike to school programs address safety concerns by encouraging children to walk in groups and organizing responsible adults to accompany them, like the walking school bus or bicycle train. They also teach safe pedestrian behavior on the walk to and from school. Effective programs empower neighborhoods and local agencies to work together to identify and create safe routes to school and to partner with local police to enforce speeds in and around the neighborhood. They also provide crossing guards for children on their way to and from school. The CDC has excellent resources through Kids Walk. They provide fact sheets, PowerPoints, program guides, and promotional tools. And you can also look into safe routes to school. This is run by the Federal Department of Transportation, and this program offers resources, activities, and funding to make walking and biking to school a safe and routine activity in your community. So Norwich Elementary in Hilliard, Ohio, used Action for Healthy Kids' signature program, Game On, the Ultimate Wellness Challenge, as a way to frame all their nutrition and physical activity initiatives under one wellness umbrella and give it more power. For their before and after school challenges, Norwich encouraged kids to walk to school, and for those who lived too far away, they designated a drop-off point 1 mile from school. They also established 10 walking school buses so kids could walk together on days of their choosing. Wellness Committee member Mary Chase, Norwich's first Game On champion, said it would be really hard to stop those school buses now as the kids love them. And also I'd like to share another success story from here in Alabama. Working with Safe Routes to School, the organization I mentioned earlier, a Birmingham area school, Hemp Hill Elementary, has launched a Safe Routes to School program. And since the beginning, their school counselor, Ms. Tyson, has provided the site coordination to host pedestrian and bicycle education, as well as weekly walking Wednesdays through their walking school bus program. Hemp Hill's walking school bus often exceeds 100 students, and during the past school year, Hemp Hill students walked almost 1,000 miles through the walking school bus program. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Hannah to tell you a little bit more about some of our programs.
Thank you, Christina. So Students Taking Charge is Action for Healthy Kids frameworks for high school students to create, market, and lead their own nutrition and physical activity project with the support of interested adults. Student teams can use project templates to build their own after-school physical activity programs or change their community's transportation culture by supporting walk or bike to school programs. Or students can design their very own project, including or following a guide and steps provided by the Students Taking Charge manual. Oftentimes, high school students can earn community service hours through their Students Taking Charge effort, and it's a great way to let these students really feel ownership over increasing physical activity in their school. Before we move on, we'd like to briefly touch on the point about school celebrations, rewards, fundraisers, and family events. They are all opportunities to provide increasing and promoting physical activity before, during, and after the school day. Shifting the focus away from food lets students and families know that physical activity is valued and supported by school staff and parents. Parent groups are often great organizations that help coordinate these types of activities and are a good first place to start when thinking about shifting from a food-focused event culture to a more active, healthy one. Why not host a family fun night devoted to recreation and physical fitness? When it's holiday time, why not lose treats and turn on the music instead and host a dance party? Or how about a jog-a-thon or a hula hoop-a-thon for your next fundraiser instead of selling an unhealthy food product? You can check out our Action for Healthy Kids Parent Toolkit for more tips and resources on active events. Before we wrap up today, I just wanted to discuss the issue of sustainability. What can you do to ensure that your physical activity initiatives will really take hold and become a permanent part of your school culture year after year? You have to work hard to make sure that your projects are endorsed by your principal, supported by your staff, and have parents involved in the planning and implementation. We've talked through this already, but we really can't emphasize it enough. Write your new physical activity practices and goals into your school or your district level wellness policies and school level action plans, and this will help to keep you focused and on track and paying attention to student health. Be sure to include teachers, school staff, and students in the conversations as you develop the policies. They are ultimately going to be the ones enforcing those policies, and their buy-in is really important, as we heard from our Alabama school example. When you group your initiatives together under a school health or a school wellness umbrella, you also increase the chances of their sustainability. Individual projects tend to have more impact if they are part of a larger ongoing initiative around school health and wellness. Establishing a school health committee and using it to drive and promote initiatives is a good start. By choosing a tested framework like Action for Healthy Kids Game On program, Fuel Up to Play 60, or Students Taking Charge, you have one opportunity to accomplish this. All three are free programs, and you can tailor them to your own particular group or school's needs. Student engagement is a key indicator in the success of all three of these programs, and there's lots of tips for getting students involved included. It's also good to link with other community efforts to help with both programming, funding, and support around your physical activity initiatives. There are often grant opportunities that you can research so you can understand what's going on in your community and brainstorm potential partners that could help you receive this funding. When brainstorming potential partners, think about local gyms, doctors, health-oriented foundations, or nonprofits, and think about ways that you could get them involved in your work. The Healthier U.S. Schools Challenge is the USDA's voluntary certification initiative created to recognize schools for the promotion of nutrition and physical activity. This is an awards program, and schools work on different initiatives related to nutrition and physical activity, and then are awarded given either bronze, silver, or gold status achievements, and sometimes monetary incentives when they reach different levels. Encourage your school administrators or wellness team to take on this award or certification program. The process of evaluating your school's overall wellness environment, including your physical activity efforts, can serve as a catalyst for new initiatives, and the recognition you receive will help create a wellness identity or culture in your school, which will help encourage sustainability. Some states, like Indiana, also offer state-level award programs that are similar to this. The Learning Connection is a great resource from Action for Healthy Kids to help you make the connection between physical activity, healthy eating, and learning. It's an easy-to-read special report that summarizes the most recent research proving that healthy kids are better learners. We highly encourage you to check it out. Parents, teachers, students, school leaders, and community members can make a lasting impact when we combine efforts. The message to provide children with consistent messaging, or the key, is to provide children with consistent messaging around health, nutrition, and physical activity, and we really can do this by working together. Action for Healthy Kids offers a slideshow presentation called Share Healthy Foods and Activities in School that you can download from our website and share with your audience, and it's many of the same slides that we used in today's webinar. It's a fantastic resource for you to use in your local community and to challenge your school community to really dedicate themselves to sharing healthy food and activities. Action for Healthy Kids also has tip sheets on recess, fitness breaks, and before and after school activities, and they will be included in the handouts that you receive with the follow-up email from this webinar. In addition, we have a new do-it-yourself DIY mini webinar series that it will also be, the links will also be available in the follow-up email. And we have new webinars that have just been recorded on brain breaks, or fitness breaks as they're sometimes called, and also one about yoga in the school. So please check those out. They're 10-minute videos that are great resources for you. In addition, in that follow-up email, we'll also send you the links to all of the resources that were listed in our webinar and more today. As you can see, it'll include information on quality PE, fitness breaks, yoga programs, content learning with movement, before and after school programs, walk and run programs, and walk and bike to school initiatives. We hope that we've gone a long way towards meeting our goals for this webinar as we're rounding up the time that we have today. We hope that you better understand the importance of physical activity and its connection to learning, and that you will be able to share this connection with others to build support for your own initiatives. We also hope that you've collected plenty of ideas and strategies on how to take action at the school level, at the district level, and even a few ideas on how to take action at the state level. And lastly, we hope that you've learned some strategies for incorporating your program sustainability into your physical activity projects, and that it can become something that's just a part of your everyday school culture. This time, Carol, do we have any more questions?
We do have some more questions. First, though, I just want to also mention that there will be another do-it-yourself mini webinar available on this topic within the next week or two on indoor recess kits. So that goes along very well with this topic today, too. So look for that on YouTube and on our website with the others that Hannah mentioned. So questions, we have one about the brain break baskets that one of the facilitators mentioned. And how can I find out what was included in those baskets? I'd like to create a resource for schools that I work with.
Absolutely. So there's lots of ideas for brain break kits that are out there. We would be happy to follow up with you and send you the specific resources that were included in that example. But it's also one of the best resources, I think, is if you visit the Action for Healthy Kids Pinterest page, where there are some, I think there's a whole board on physical activity that includes a lot of ideas for brain break kits. And then in addition, as Carol mentioned, we are going to be posting that DIY mini webinar on indoor recess, as well as one that's already posted on brain breaks. And I know the brain breaks one has some ideas for what to include in those tips, and maybe that indoor recess kit. Oftentimes those are very much so kits that can kind of be used for either brain break or indoor recess. So check out both of those, as well as our Pinterest page.
Right, and actually the DIY mini webinar on the Brain Breaks featured Shannon, who was also mentioned in the success story earlier today. So definitely that might have some of the same things that were in the Brain Break baskets that she talked about. So also we have a question about federal or state law. Is there a federal or state law that requires all elementary schools to have a gym at their school?
As far as I am aware, I don't believe there is one. I know of a couple of schools that have cafetoriums, so it's like a joint cafeteria and gymnasium, so it's not a designated space for just for physical activity, as well as a couple of schools that don't have a large gymnasium area, and they've kind of transitioned a couple of classrooms into physical activity rooms. So I don't believe there is one, but you might want to check. I know there isn't one from a federal level, and I'm not sure about individual state laws.
Okay. Regarding walking and biking to school, what would you say would be the average amount of distance that a child could or should be able to walk or bike to school each morning?
This is a good question. I would say that it really depends oftentimes on the age of the children. I would say older elementary students, a mile is definitely not too far for them to walk, as long as there is safe infrastructure in place. But something that I would recommend that you go to the National Safe Routes to School or just Google walk or bike to school, and it will get you there. And they have more specific recommendations on distance and weather and all kinds of things around when it is appropriate for walking and biking to school.
Okay, and our state has specific guidelines, legislation on physical activity. We're supposed to have 150 minutes each week of physical activity for elementary school students, but my school is not following that. What do you recommend I do?
This is a hard one, and one, like I mentioned earlier, that we face in Illinois kind of regularly, because we do have that daily PE requirement, and we know that a lot of schools aren't in alignment. So I would check by seeing if your state has a waiver system that allows schools to opt out for some approved reason for those requirements. And if they don't, then I would start with talking to your either superintendent or your principal and educating them about that state legislation and make sure that they're aware of it, and then talk to them and see what the current level of physical activity or physical education is that's offered, and kind of see what the difference is, and figure out a strategy for kind of increasing that time over kind of an incremental period to see if you can get in alignment. Unfortunately, that's a problem that we see kind of regularly, is policy and environment aren't matching, so the implementation of those policies are hard. So look, it might be a good idea to connect with your state Action for Healthy Kids team to see if they have any ideas that are more state-specific.
And we have that same thing in Colorado, Hannah, and I mean, there is no enforcement mechanism built into the law at all, so if your school isn't following it, there's not really anything that can be done from an enforcement level. But we recommend parents to, when they're trying to get their schools to comply, to go in from the perspective of I'm here to help. I'm here to help us meet that requirement. And what can I do? Here are some ideas. How can we get the ball rolling, as opposed to, we're not meeting that requirement. What are you going to do about it? A lot of it really is that you can use the law as a platform to advocate, as opposed to using it as a way to create conflict. Because when you're creating it, when you're creating conflict and going at it from a negative perspective, you're not going to get as much traction as if you try to help present solutions to legislation that they're supposed to be following. So one more question related to music. Do you guys have any recommendations for identifying appropriate music? Are there any good resources out there that can recommend kid-friendly music?
My recommendation and what I always found when I was working in schools is that kids really are into kind of whatever popular music is. So just making sure that you find appropriate PG-13 or PG-rated versions of popular songs that might be on the radio is good. Sticking with good, role models around healthy behaviors as well. But there's also, as we mentioned before, opportunities like Instant Recess, which are YouTube videos that link physical activity breaks with some cultural aspects of, I know there's a reggae one and a line dancing one. So it's really appropriate music because it doesn't have maybe words that go with it, but still keeps it fun and interesting and engaging for the students. Christina, do you have any other recommendations there from your experience as a teacher?
No, I think you covered it. Just making sure that there's nothing inappropriate in any of the music that you choose.
Well, that's great, guys. Thank you so much, both you guys, for your presentation, and thanks also to our special guest, Octavia, who joined us today and gave us some great ideas. That concludes our presentation today. We will send out the follow-up email in 2 to 3 business days with a link to the recording and the handouts, and we'll have all those great resources on it. It will also include a registration link for the next webinar in our Parent Leadership Series, which is about school meals. And if you want to learn more about Action for Healthy Kids and how you can get involved with our mission and our movement, we encourage you to take our Every Kid Healthy pledge and really help create that 100,000-person movement to make all schools healthier places. It takes just 10 seconds to take the pledge, and once you've signed on, we will show you lots of ways, big and small, that you can turn your commitment into action. Thanks so much for your time, and have a great day.